company, but I won't actually call the name of the company because right now I would like to just talk about my journey, actually how I got familiar with KNIME, and especially focusing on that part because actually I became KNIME developer or KNIME user, especially after immediately when I quitted my previous job where I was a SQL developer. And I would like to share with you my journey, my learning curve actually, and what I was able to actually inherit from my experience with real SQL development into KNIME, how it helped during my work, and even my daily routine actually sometimes, because I use not only for work KNIME, but sometimes even at home for some smaller tasks, what I'm doing in my free time. So I hope that it will be like, it's not going to be a very technical presentation, because actually what I'm covering during my daily routine, it's a lot of things actually in KNIME, but I would like to focus on and share my experience about how maybe if you are a beginner with KNIME, what to focus on, especially if you are coming from a more database world, let's say, or even reporting world. So just a few words about me. Again, my name is András Cseh. I'm an economist, so I'm not an IT developer. I have over 13 years of experience actually with different econometric, statistical software development. I mean, I work with SPSS, data, EViews. I not only just the point and clicking features actually of these softwares, but I developed a lot of automated solutions. So I used each of these tools, actually the scripting language, and then I turned for a more, let's say, hardcore economic path. I started using the MATLAB. If you are familiar with the MATLAB, that's an object-oriented actually programming language which supports more like engineers and economists as well. And in MATLAB, I was able to specialize in macroeconomic model development and forecasting development. And then I actually eventually specialized in database and reporting development in PLSQL environment, in Oracle PLSQL environment. And then in the past 3 years, I had the opportunity actually to learn KNIME and use the KNIME in my daily routine, also during my work. And actually, I started using also at home. So I think it's quite interesting, and it was a quite interesting journey. So what I would like to talk about for what I use the KNIME, discuss the learning curve actually from PLSQL development to KNIME, and I would like to also share my comparison actually between KNIME and PLSQL, how I see it, and what I think that the advantages and disadvantages actually compared to PLSQL, and actually maybe identify some skills which are transferable actually when you would like to become actually a KNIME expert or developer. So, but first of all, I'm pretty sure that not everybody is familiar with PLSQL, what it is exactly. So that's the procedure language of the SQL in the Oracle world. Let's say there are other procedure languages, actually not only in Oracle, but actually for MySQL, so Microsoft SQL as well. It's a versatile and robust programming language, and basically it's used for building and managing databases. And I used in Oracle basically. It's a procedural language, so it means that actually developers can write codes that define procedures, basically functions as well, triggers, and actually everything can be basically packed into one big packages or several packages. It's highly integrated, of course, with SQL. So the PLSQL, it's the name. It's not a big surprise, I would say. So, and basically, queries can be embedded into the DML statements within the PLSQL code actually, and also like updating, querying, inserting, and deleting data. And basically it's not just writing SQLs or queries, but this is really the programming of actually querying, so the SQL. So, and it has a wide control structure. Basically, it supports standard procedural control structures such as loops, conditional statements, exception handling actually as well, and basically handle unexpected situation. So I don't know who worked with PLSQL maybe, so maybe there are some others as well, hopefully. Oh, nice. So maybe it won't be that new topic for you, but hopefully, and maybe at the end, maybe also you can actually share some thoughts what I was talking about, because I know that you are also working with KNIME, so it's it's not a big surprise, but it would be nice to know what you think actually about the transitioning as well from PLSQL developer to KNIME. And right now the question, so from where actually to where I arrived and I used KNIME. So for what I use KNIME, I use as an ETL tool. It's very important actually. So because I'm not using actually for data mining, modeling right now the KNIME. Actually it seems very simple, but actually ETL tools are quite complex, and during my work usually I use for that one. And what ETL means actually, so extract, transfer, load, as you can see. So basically moving data from actually different sources, transform them, and actually transform them into a consistent format. Then we can load into target destination. That's the ETL, what ETL means. And for what I use KNIME as a reporting tool as well. Actually, during my so the target destinations, those are not only databases or output formats, CSVs, Excels, but also very specific reports. And actually, so that's the main goal of the transformations. And for what I use, we try to create client solutions. So it means that I don't want to use actually my KNIME developments at all, honestly. I develop it for other actually users, basically for clients. And so transitioning during the KNIME. So honestly, at the beginning, I had a lot of challenges. So because I remember when I switched from PLSQL to KNIME, it actually so basically in 1 week I had to learn the basics immediately because I got a project, honestly, and a quite complex project. And I was surprised actually because I never saw any ETL tool, honestly. So the PLSQL is not an ETL tool at all. Even the MATLAB or any statistical tools are not like the KNIME. I was a bit surprised. So when I remember when I installed it, I was starting looking how can I write SQLs immediately, actually. So that was my first thing. Okay, well, how can I write SQL? I started Googling it because actually I did the first 2 trainings, the Data Wrangler, L1 and L2, and there was nothing basically about SQL. So I was a bit surprised. And I had to realize that, okay, maybe from now I can a bit actually forget the SQL, and I had to invest a lot of time that basically how I'm able to transform the SQL writing skills into actually make good workflows. Because that was, at the beginning, it was quite difficult actually to transform, especially from scripting languages actually to a workflow-based and graphical-based interface. Then actually how the programming paradigms work in KNIME and how I was able to actually transform those into KNIME. So how can I focus on data processing, how the workflow-based approach actually works and looks like, because that was completely different, and how and the integration with databases. And then basically how I can actually overcome those challenges. So I not only I was able to actually did the trainings, the L1 and the L2. I skipped all of the others actually, so I tried to cherry picking what were the importance for me. But actually what I really liked, and I will talk about that one, that's how the KNIME forum and the community actually was really kind of helpful to me during my journey, because compared to other programming languages what I learned and I used actually on a professional level, the community was different, honestly. So for, of course, the SQL, PLSQL, Oracle, there's a huge community. You can find a lot of things, a lot of solutions, Stack Overflow, actually, if you, I suppose you are familiar with that one. Sometimes it's very difficult to find a few things. There was this guy, the other one, no, I cannot recall it, Ask from Tom, maybe, are you familiar with that one? Ask from Tom. Tom is a really cool guy, actually, but actually, and I was able to learn a lot in PLSQL from Tom, let's say, but the KNIME forum, so it was surprisingly good. So, and how I was able to utilize it and use it. So, the hands-on example was actually, even if you write to the forum, usually you get some answers. Even the community is not as large, actually, for example, for MATLAB or SQL, especially Oracle, but it's really good. And of course, the hands-on trainings. So about the learning curve, I already touched with that one. So understanding the basics. That's the L1, L2 training, honestly. So the basic concept and the terminology of the KNIME. It takes a bit of time, let's say, even if you use actually day by day. And especially, as I remember, I had nobody actually who helped me. So in my team, I was just assigned to some projects, and okay, you have to use KNIME immediately. And you have to deliver actually solutions in 1 month because there's a deadline, and nobody can do it. You were hired for that one, so you have to do it. Okay. Honestly, I spent a few nights so in developments because at the beginning, as I thought, it was not easy. But then actually I realized that, so I started realizing how can I basically transform those skills that I learned from other programming languages, especially the PLSQL. So, and how can I utilize it during actually during this visual, let's say visual programming? Because at the end, I hope what I reached, but maybe my colleagues here can actually regret, but what we reached, that kind of visual programming, and I think it's working, and it's working effectively. Then actually I was able to understand more features, more advanced features. And I think the more advanced features are like how to utilize the loops. Because that was a big difference compared to other programming languages, indeed, especially how to utilize and how to find actually the most efficient loops. So I struggled a lot with that one, and actually from now I always, for my new joiners, I always actually show them my training about loops, because I try to summarize that like there are like 4 or 5 types of loops what we have to use and how and for what type of solutions and problems, because actually for me it took a while. So I would say that to be comfortable with the loops and how to utilize it in KNIME, it took me like 3 months actually to really get comfortable with everything. And immediately know for what type of problem, what type of loop I need actually KNIME. But from now, honestly, I cannot even imagine that I would use again the PLSQL loops, because those are also quite tricky, honestly. So to understand them and then to utilize them, because those can be tricky, especially the more advanced loops actually in PLSQL. And then what was easy, actually, how to handle variables. because dynamic SQL programming and especially procedure SQL, so how to treat global, local variables. So the concept is very similar, and actually it was, for me, that was the easiest thing. Actually, I can see for some, let's say, colleagues, actually sometimes it's more difficult actually to understand how the treatment of the variables actually working, but for me, especially from this background, it was pretty easy. And honestly, and I will talk about that one a bit later, that and how it helps to optimize workflows, basically. Because as I told you, I usually do not develop it for myself, actually, but from clients, let's see. And then, what is the next step, the next level? I would say is basically how you design the workflow and basically try to make such workflows which are based on modules, basically. So, because what we try to achieve and what I try to achieve, that modular design and development, actually, that's what getting more and more efficient, actually doing the everyday work. And the PLSQL development helped a lot, because what we do usually there, not only writing SQLs, but writing functions, writing such utility functions and other programs which helps actually to create other ETL type of tools than in PLSQL. And that one, it's very, so I realized that it's very easy in KNIME. So how to handle actually components and create components which can be kind of like very similar functions, let's say, but not exactly like that. But that's really helpful and really easy then if you were able to create one very good component for one specific problem, then you can use it every time. Of course, this is what it is for, but what we have to focus on to create more and more useful components for ourselves and actually try to utilize them, because you can save a lot of time actually, and you can make your workflows more robust actually with this type of design and development. So I'm not looking at the time. Okay, sorry. I'm used to that one, so usually okay, and the dynamic control of the workflows, I would say that's the last stage. So when everything is put together, the modular design, understand everything, the advanced features of the KNIME, then the whole dynamic workflow controls, actually, it's also what we try to achieve when I was a PLSQL developer, actually, so to create such jobs, such packages with procedures which are dynamically controlled by the users, actually. And this is the main goal in the KNIME as well, I would say, to reach that level. So, and I made some I tried to put together a really good comparison, but it was really difficult, honestly. So, we can focus on, okay, those are those data handling tools, PLSQL and KNIME, of course. So the KNIME provides a wide range of nodes for diverse data processing tasks. By the PLSQL, of course, it's focusing on database operations and procedural programming with the Oracle database. But maybe what I would highlight, and actually the last two, so the workflow-based approach, it's a visual workflow-based approach, of course, in the KNIME, while in the PLSQL, actually, developers can create procedure codes. Actually, there are already other solutions with PLSQL, which is quite similar and visual. Honestly, I never liked it. I was trained to use that one, but actually, I always skip that visual programming in PLSQL. But ease of use. So I realized that the learning curve was much faster actually with KNIME to reach that level, almost what I reached actually with the PLSQL. It was much easier, even maybe with less support than what I got with PLSQL, because actually I was sent to a lot of trainings SQL tuning trainings, PLSQL level 1, level 2, level 3 trainings, weeks of trainings actually to reach that level that I can comfortably actually develop codes. But with KNIME, and this is what the KNIME is designed for, I would say actually, so almost everybody can learn it at some level, of course, I would say. But even to reach a higher level of comfortability with the KNIME, it was really easy, I would say. So maybe even without programming background, it's easy, but with programming background, it's much easier. And I'm not talking about that one that we can write actually JavaScript or Python or R or any type of other scripting languages are integrated, because maybe I had some experience with other scripting languages which are in KNIME and supported, but still to learn actually with the basic KNIME nodes what we can do. Because actually the syntax, the logic of the PLSQL is much more difficult. So it's really difficult to learn it on your own, honestly. So without any support, you need a lot of trainings, actually a lot of exercises, a lot of use cases to learn. Even before PLSQL, to learn the SQL basics. So because I started actually PLSQL programming with a lot of SQL background already, but that's not the same. And the scalability of the KNIME, I would say that's much better than the PLSQL, I would say. That's my opinion. Not only because that supports actually not only database connections, but any other actually input types. I programmed in PLSQL actually CSV reading and Excel reading. That was a nightmare. So it's a nightmare in PLSQL, but with KNIME it was really easy actually. So, and also the scalability, so how it actually computes and actually do the parallel execution and so on and so on. So I think that so I talked about a lot of skills, and let's try to summarize them. So what can be transferred actually from PLSQL? That's one very important relational database concept, I would say. Especially if you use the KNIME for ETL purpose, that's the most important thing to know and to focus on, even when you develop actually KNIME. Data manipulation, of course, that's I think it's very convenient. And what's not convenient is the SQL tuning. I don't know, so if you programmed in SQL, that you know that actually to write efficient and really good queries, honestly, it's a nightmare. So it's in big databases, and I work with big databases, so not thousands of records, but actually more than, I don't know, sometimes 100 million of records, one query. So, and with a lot of joins and goodbyes, actually it takes a lot of time and a lot of skill and a lot of training to understand the SQL tuning. And it's very, I think it's very important, and it was very helpful to me, because maybe like query execution plan and indexing actually do not exist in KNIME, but there are very similar features and things in KNIME. So the query execution plan, even if you see actually how the joins are working and how those are actually running in KNIME, you can see that there are sometimes actually, so even in SQL, for example, there's maybe a few types of engines, how the queries actually run. That's very similar actually in SQL and it's in KNIME, sorry, and it's important to pay attention to those ones. Indexing is a very important thing in SQL and in PLSQL, definitely. It's very similar problem in KNIME when we would like to optimize actually things. I think that type of optimization can be like So how we look at the data, how we clean the data, how we try to actually manipulate the data that way that nodes and operations are smoothly running. That's also very important. But important also the statistics and the cost-based optimization. That's part of the SQL tuning as well. In SQL, in PLSQL, in the database, we are running a lot of statistics to actually try to measure how the data looks like, what is distribution of the data, in different columns, different type of columns, and of course actually try to optimize it. Something very similar exists, especially the partitioning, so that exists, for example, in KNIME as well. I think that's also very important to know. And maybe what's more important than the procedural programming logic, so how to actually control the workflows with variables, which is one of the most important things in KNIME. I would say that was easy to actually learn for PLSQL because, as I already mentioned, the global and local variable usage, that's really helpful. So maybe just to summarize and so at the end what I like in KNIME and why. So I would say I like the data analytical feature. And why? Because in PLSQL it's a nightmare actually to check step-by-step processes. And I see actually as a result, this is one of the best features actually of the KNIME, that between each step I can see the results and I can actually easily check what I'm doing and what the workflow is doing. Flexibility, that's really one of the best features also. As I already mentioned, the community and the ecosystem, which is really helpful. Of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, I was not a big fan of the visual workflow design, but now not only getting comfortable, but I really like it, honestly. So it's really easy to follow if the workflow is organized. Okay, my workflow is usually not that organized, honestly, so, but still, I can understand it, I can follow it, and so sometimes I remember we had to write like SQLs and dynamic SQLs, which were like, I don't know, more than 1,000 rows, just only the query. It's a painful process actually to follow what's happening. But in KNIME it's easier. And of course the integration with external tools and libraries, so at least I can still do some scripting in KNIME as well, still. And of course, what I mentioned, that's the learning curve, which is really nice. So thanks for your attention. That would be my journey and my experience in KNIME. Do you have any questions?
Actually, if you have any questions, just raise your hands and I will jog over there with this microphone.
Thank you. You mentioned indexing in PL/SQL and also in KNIME, and I'm familiar with PL/SQL indexing, but not in KNIME.
I mentioned
How
that
do you do that in KNIME? I'm not aware of it.
Not just the concept, so it doesn't exist in KNIME, indexing. Oh. I mentioned it, it doesn't exist. Indexing, like actually what we are doing in the indexing, actually that concept, so at looking at to clean the data that way, to actually store the data that way, that is easier to understand, and okay, it won't actually make any differences, honestly, but the concept what we are using, the indexing, that can be kind of transferred also during the line below. So indexing doesn't exist, partitioning it is, as I know in KNIME, but I never used actually KNIME. But that's definitely exists. Other tuning possibilities, actually, those are very similar. So in KNIME and in PLSQL.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
What was the buying property of KNIME when you were first confronted with KNIME that your boss said you have to do it in KNIME, and you said, yes, I looked it up and I will do it, instead of saying, I would rather do it in SQL or whatever you would like to have.
The first time, so when I get
Yes, without knowing KNIME. Your boss is telling you, you have to do it in KNIME. And instead of saying, no, I can do it better in something else, what was the buying property of KNIME for you?
If I go back, basically here, you mean the...
That's what you learned after you started using it, before you started using it.
What was
The buying principle that first when you encounter KNIME, what is the buying sales data of KNIME that you said, okay, I will try it and I will do it?
You know what? I remember. Yeah, because basically I became, I came from a database work, let's say, and when my boss mentioned, okay, here is this tool, and basically you can use everything with this tool. You can use every type of data with this tool, and easily. That was the first thing that actually was important to me and immensely.
And do you believe that? Because, to be honest, every tool is the same way that you can use every type of data in every way.
Well,
and you already did have some programming background.
Yeah, I did, but even I remember that for example, in eViews, I don't know, is there anybody from the room who used eViews or Stata or SPSS maybe? Stata, SPSS, okay. So I remember that I struggled a lot in those softwares, and I had to load actually different data types, and even with eViews, because we use eViews for econometric purposes, especially for time series and model development, that's a nightmare even to load actually time series data.
Same in Oracle, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, in Oracle that's even worse actually. So you have to program a lot actually to be able to load any external sources other than data connections or from schemas. That was the first thing that, okay, here is this tool and it's really easy, just a few clicks. So, and that's saved a lot of time, of course. That saved a lot of time. Unfortunately, when I started using KNIME, that was the 4.1.1 version, I didn't like that much the Excel reader, honestly, but it improved a lot. So now I really like it. But other than that, actually, when I started using it, after that, I realized it's really good for this one.
And it's free.
Oh, yeah, but actually, maybe it's, if you don't be free, then our company will pay.
People start because it's, you can just start using all the functionality. So that's what a lot of people start.
Yeah, exactly, true.
You try to pay for another tool, like IQ or...
Yeah, eViews, Stata, SPSS, those are one of the expensive, really expensive actually. So,
Any other questions?
Just a small one. What version of analytics platform are you using?
right now,
Yes.
4.5.3.
And why?
Because that's what my company uses. You can ask here the guys who did it.
That's a business secret.
Okay, I don't know.
You didn't mention which companies.
And I'm not part of this company.
I mean, they're nothing to do with it.
Old habits.
But I also I installed actually the 5.2 point. What's the latest one? What? Yeah, 3. Yeah, and I checked it.
At home.
Yeah, at home. At home. Yeah.
Any other questions? If not, thank you, András.
Thank you.